Hello, I'm David Bullock.
And I'm Ala Vovk. Welcome to BrookesTV.
The County Council has agreed on a new budget for the new year. Most affected by budget cuts will be children's centres in Oxfordshire.
Children and parents. These two groups will be among the most affected by budget cuts in Oxfordshire. Leaders of political groups met in Country Hall to agree a series of changes to the budget that had been proposed in January. In this proposal was stated that Oxfordshire County Council needs to make £69 million of savings up to 2020, with £8 million in children's services. This will have an impact on vital services, as homeless support, elderly day services and children's centres. Despite strong opposition, the authority plans to stop funding 44 children's centres and 7 hubs and replace them by 8 families and children's centres. A group called Save Oxfordshire Children's Centres fights against closing them. We spoke to its members.
I think that they could look at keeping the children's centres and changing the way that they do other things. So rather than creating 8 brand new centres and spending God knows how much on those, why not deliver the services that they need to deliver through the children's centres? And even if that then meant that the children's centres had to find some other funding as well to do some of the bits that they do, the locations would still be there. You know, it's very local. As I say, the people that are here today are people I've met. And my local children's centre, they all live locally.
We all benefited massively from the children's centres, and we were all bewildered first-time mums at the same time, and it helped us through the hardest of time, you know, postnatal depression, things like that. And had it not been for the sort of support and the community that these things forge, we'd have been pretty close to, you know, going down the sort of lonely, isolated abyss.
A new budget was approved for the next year. The savings has been reduced to £6 million as the council wants to reduce the impact. It emerged that the council tries to secure alternative funding, which could save more than 30 centres. What we are proposing is the safest possible system that protects vulnerable families. The County Council is encouraging voluntary and community organisations to take over the running of children's centres. However, with these massive cuts in funding, the fate of children's centres remains still unclear. This is Martina Peklova for BrookesTV.
It seems that budget cuts spare no one and won't stop anytime soon. Not only are children's centres affected, but museums as well.
They're in a difficult position now that the central government has decided to make savings partly by reducing the fundings to local authorities.
Tuesday, 16 February was the day Oxfordshire Council discussed the new budget after it had been required to make 361 million savings between 2010 and 2020. As local authorities keep cutting budgets, Oxfordshire museums have to find new creative ways to cope with their limited funding.
Funding is quite clearly a key challenge because inevitably all kinds of sources of funding are reducing. So whether it's direct government grants, whether it's local authority funding, even trusts and foundations, the interest on their investments that provide their grants has obviously reduced dramatically.
Multiplying sources of income is essential to offset expenses such as building maintenance and collection storage. The Story Museums, which is about to become fully accredited, can be a good example of how a museum can raise funds. Recently, it has made it to the final stages of the Arts Council England's capital funding programme and is now preparing its redevelopment.
In order to be successful, we have to find the remaining £4 million to match fund their grant. So our challenge over the next 18 months is to explore where that remaining £4 million will come from. We're already in quite in-depth conversations with a variety of trusts and foundations, and we also have significant individual support.
I love museums. They are the best cafes usually. And I don't know, they're just great spaces, you know.
The museums are so important to the education and the culture for the country and for the people.
It's an attraction. It's going to keep people coming to the city, and then hopefully, you know, people when they're in the city will go to cafes and spend money in other places, so it'll help to keep the local economy going.
In these times of budget cuts, it has become even more challenging for museums to prove themselves, even though their number of visits has increased. Making knowledge and culture available for everyone has always been one of the main functions of museums. With their budget being reduced, it makes us wonder how their core concept will be impacted in the coming years. I am Jessica Tsvetanov for BrookesTV News.
Refugees have started to settle into Oxford. Most of them are families who have to flee from Syria.
Taking in more refugees calls for better integration. The local charity, Jacari, starts with overcoming the language barrier.
Having a carefree day at the museum is not possible for every child. Children much like these, who come from a refugee family now settling into Oxford, haven't had this in a long time. Or never. Jacari, a charity based in Oxford, teaches children English, but also introduces them to the culture, for example by visiting the Pitt Rivers Museum. Jacari helps by working together with local schools and offering free English lessons to children once a week. Looking at the percentage of children in school whose first language is not English, Oxford reaches 35.6%, which is more than double than the national average. Students from both Oxford University and Oxford Brookes are eager to help resolve this problem and volunteer to teach the children at the families' homes. They also connect with them personally to make integration easier.
I think that to move to another country is a huge thing, and I don't think a lot of people understand how hard that must be for a child to be put in that situation. And I think it's really good just to have that communication at least with someone, a native speaker, who can really help.
More refugee families coming into Oxford might affect Jacari. Sophie, the coordinator of the charity, tells us why this is not yet the case.
When refugees and asylum seekers first arrive, it takes quite a while for them to find accommodation, and it takes a while for them to enrol their children in school. So it's quite a while in between the point of arrival and the point that a school chooses to make a referral to Jacari. So it's only recently that we started seeing a few more Syrian children being referred to us, but we're expecting more in the next few months.
In fact, David Cameron plans to take in 20,000 refugees by 2020. This is Anna Kollick for BrookesTV News.
Recently, a survey has found that Oxford is the fittest city in the UK. But is that really true?
We wanted to find out and took a closer look at the athletes and couch potatoes of Oxford.
Most of us are trying to be fit and healthy. So what makes an entire city aim to be the sportiest? Regardless my belly. A research which achieved that Oxford City became the fittest city in the UK. In a survey, a vast proportion of Oxford City's residents work out at least once a week. Liverpool came in second fittest, closely followed by Manchester. But does the study stand up to scrutiny when only 2,000 people in UK population of 65 million were selected for study? Actually, I tried to contact Adapt Nutrition, the conductor of the survey, but I didn't get any reply. Therefore, we asked people about their opinions and how many times they are working out per week.
No, I hadn't heard that Oxford was the fittest city, or that the people of Oxford are particularly fit.
Really? Excellent. Yeah. That's probably because of the sort of student population.
Personally, I'm not really into sports, really. I don't really work out sort of thing.
2 times. No, for real. Like 2 times? No, 2 times. A week, not per day.
Squash is usually once a week.
People's lifestyles are different, and opinions of the survey are controversial. So we asked the counsellor, Mark Ligo, about the credibility of the survey.
It is, we've been benchmarked. Sport England have also done a survey as well. The Active People survey, which came out, put Oxford as one of the top 5 in the UK as well. So it's nice to hear that, it's music to my ears. One of the reasons is because we've continued to invest in our facilities. So for example, we've invested in our sports pavilions across Oxford. We've invested 3.1 million in our play areas to encourage more people to play, enjoy the outside.
Oxford City Council has made a significant investment in sporting facilities, but ultimately it's your choice whether to make Oxford the fittest or the fattest city in 2017. Mohammed Andouh for BrookesTV.
Well, that's it for this half. We'll see you after the break.
See you after the break. And welcome back! Earlier in the show, we've seen that more refugees are coming into Oxford now.
I talked to Dawn Chatty of the Refugee Studies Centre to find out why Syrians flee from their home country to the UK.
Well, I would say that it's the last resort. Syrians who have been exposed to the violence of the civil war in their country, to repeated bombings by their own government, as well as by Russia, to attacks by their own troops, as well as the troops of Hezbollah in Lebanon and Iran, have basically been displaced. Most Syrians have moved around within Syria 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and then eventually have crossed the border and spent time in Turkey, Lebanon, or Jordan. Those who found that they simply cannot survive have now looked for ways of moving on, particularly those who have a connection, who have a network, who have a relative. And those who've come to England basically already have relatives here. You know, Syrians were great merchants, just like the Lebanese, and they have networks throughout the world. You know, there's something like 3 or 4 million Syrians from the generations going back to the end of World War I in Central America and North America and in South America, as well as in Europe and in the UK.
So they already have people here, but this does raise a question. Here in Oxford, for example, we have a large homeless problem, and there are some people who would say that we should focus on housing our own people before we should take in anyone from Syria. What would you say to that?
Well, I agree with the sentiment. There are a lot of homeless people here in Oxford, but that's not to say that there aren't accommodations that they could be put into. The problem is the kind of funding that the local council has. There isn't as much effort directed at trying to house the homeless and help them get back on their feet. So that's an issue that's quite separate from housing or providing asylum, temporary protection to Syrians who in some ways are here to be with relatives, but again, we have a moral as well as an economic duty of care.
But about 60% of the UK population would like to take in the same or fewer refugees as opposed to more. Do you think that public opinion can sway how many refugees come into the country?
I certainly think it can, and I believe public opinion is changing. Of course, depending upon the poll that you take, you will find that there is a great deal of support for refugees from Syria at the local community level. I live in a village just up the road at Deddington, and there are still signs in people's windows which say, "Refugees welcome," which isn't David Cameron's message.
But do you think perhaps taking in more refugees would be a question of extra finance being made available, or perhaps getting more of the general public on side?
I don't think that there is a huge amount of extra finance involved, and I'm sure that at some point when there's cooperation with the various EU states, the financial element can be worked through. But I just want to give you a sense of how little of its share of responsibility Great Britain has taken compared with other countries in Europe.
Please.
You have to consider that certainly Great Britain and the US are complicit in what's happened, because what we're seeing in Syria is really an outgrowth of what happened in Iraq. Now, Sweden and Germany, for example, have about 500 Syrian refugees per 100,000 population.
I mean, could you sum
UK
up?
has 5 per 100,000.
Well, that's fantastic. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for coming. It's been lovely to have you.
You're very welcome.
Oxford has been leading the carbon emission reduction in the UK. Can a new trial for green cars keep Oxford at the cutting edge?
Oxford City Council announced that a major trial will be carried out to investigate on 100 on-street electric vehicle charging points. £800,000 will be put on this trial from Go Ultra Low Cities funding. Low Carbon Oxford North has been promoting eco-sharing club in Oxford as a part of their energy and carbon reduction activities.
If you set out in this car, you will run out of charge, and there won't be anywhere that you can recharge. And the project that the City Council is leading will be dealing with that. In Oxford, we are the only electric car club, and what we really want to do is to have a second car. Then we will be able to offer a new facility to people, some sort of security and reliability that they'll always be able to get a car when they want it. Well, in general, I'm very excited about pure electric vehicles, because in the last year we've discovered how bad the nitrous oxides are.
According to the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, every year the registration number of pure electric vehicles in the UK has been increasing, especially in this past few years.
If they're a bit more affordable, then I think I would like one.
It's a cleaner car to ride, but you need, I don't know, places where to recharge the car.
If everyone rode bicycles, that would be better, yeah. But there needs to be more charging points, definitely.
However, in 2014, it was reported that multiple charging points in London had been out of service, and users had to check the online network to make sure the spot was in action. Maintaining and organizing a large number of charging points facilities will be the first challenge after the trial for City Council and other involving organizations. I'm Yuki Takagi for BrookesTV News.
Now, it was Oxford that hosted the 100th Lacrosse Varsity match against Cambridge University this year.
After a disappointing score last year, let's see how the Oxford's Women's Blues got on.
The year 2016 marks the 100th Lacrosse Varsity match of Oxford versus Cambridge Universities. Both institutes welcomed the anniversary with a variety of matches which all took place in Oxford on the 27th of February. But what's so important about the 100th anniversary?
It's an amazing event. Obviously 100 years is a very long time, and to be part of playing a sport that's been going on for this long in itself is quite incredible. The thing for me that's been the best is having all of the alumni come over. So I've been in contact with people that played in the 50th varsity, and they've come to watch the games today. Some of them have even played in the alumni matches, and so just to show how the sport has progressed over the past 100 years and look at the history has been incredible.
We went there and watched the headlining match, the Women's Oxford Blues against Cambridge Blues. The match started dynamically with a guest team opening the score on the second minute, surprising the Deep Blues. Despite Oxford pushing hard on the opponents, the first half found Cambridge leading the score with 1-4. In the second half, the Dark Blues tried hard, but Cambridge was constantly ahead. The match finished with a 3-7 win for the guest team.
Really good to kind of be in such a close match. Like Oxford definitely pushed us all the way, which was really fun to be in as a player, as well as watching from the sidelines, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think very much the same. I mean, it was a really well fought match, and so that's what we really look forward to, is having great competition, and that's why Varsity is such a fantastic event.
I thought it was really close. We put up a very good performance last year. Cambridge beat us 15-5, so it was a big kind of demolition, I would say, but this year we gave them a proper run for their money, and it was close the whole way through, so I'm happy with the way my team performed, and I'm really proud of them all.
The overall result was really satisfying for Oxford though. After a 9-9 tie on the mixed match, Cambridge scored the golden goal, resulting in 3 total wins for Oxford and 2 for Cambridge. This is Chris Akalumanu for BrookesTV News.
Well, that's it for this week. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, you can watch our previous episodes on the Oxford Brookes YouTube channel.
And if you would like to get in touch with us, just send us an email at brookestv@brookes.ac.uk. See you next time.
Goodbye.